there's no way to understate how big this weekend was for BC football. A stunning victory that really redefined the way the season's going. We're going to talk about the stunner in Raleigh as BC football gets their first ranked win in 8 years, defeating NC State 21-20. This is excitement all over the place about this win. We're going to get into it with Mitch Wolf. We'll also get into a little bit of a basketball talk. All this and more on today's Locked On BC.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On BC, this is AJ Black. Happy Monday, everyone. Today's episode is brought to you by Sling TV. Sling TV, you will not miss any action when you check out Sling TV. Don't miss this week's matchups between the Eagles and Notre Dame on Sling. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. All right, we're going to be talking about this NC State win. I know a lot of folks are really excited about it, and probably no one more excited than Mitch Wolf, but I'm just kidding. Mitch, how's it going?
Oh, I'm sorry, AJ. You caught me at a bad time. I was busy drinking a nice full glass of NC State fan tears.
Yes, this is a big win for Boston College, and I think we're both really pumped about this because I was saying to Mitch off the air, I went into this weekend thinking, okay, I'm going to set this Monday episode up where I'm going to just talk about basketball because no one's going to want to talk about BC because they probably got smoked by NC State, and we'll just look at that fun win against Detroit Mercy, which we'll get into. But this was a win I don't think anyone saw. And so, Mitch, you were watching it. What are some of your thoughts right off the bat about how that happened? You know, where this came from?
I mean, so you said like nobody expected this. I kind of sussed out something with the Louisville game earlier this season and got that one right in terms of the final result. This one, we agreed that NC State was probably going to cover. It was going to be a blowout. 18. Spread was like 18 points. Maybe minus or plus or minus half a point here or there. And after the first 10 minutes of the game, it was looking like that's exactly what's going to happen. NC State jumps out to this 14-point lead. They go up and down the field, no problem, slicing up the BC defense. BC answers with a score. Like, okay, that's nice. Good thing they finally able to get some points on the board. And after that, it just turns into this defensive slog where NC State starts turning the ball over, and BC moves the ball a little bit here and there, but they're mostly punting. And in the second half, BC defense kind of does what they did at the end of the Duke game last week. Is they start creating these turnovers. They keep giving the offense opportunities. The offense generally kind of struggles to take advantage of all of them, but they get that final drive with less than 3 minutes to go, and they go down and essentially kill the rest of the clock and then score with, 14 seconds remaining.
Yep.
And then extra point gives them the lead. I mean, it was crazy. There was really no way for me to expect this. I mean, and it's funny because the rest of the game played out about how I would have expected in terms of, BC couldn't run the ball to save their lives. They couldn't really pass protect much, especially when NC State blitzed. And on the other side of the ball, NC State moved the ball decently well. Even after those first two drives, they got into the red zone a few more times, kicked 2 field goals. They went for it on a 4th down to try to, kind of end the game with a touchdown, or not put the game away essentially. But BC did stop them. So, up until really that final drive, you're kind of thinking, okay, this is kind of going the way you expect, and you're getting your mind ready for thinking, okay, well, BC is just going to break my heart again and screw us in some major way. And at the end of the day, they actually came through and won the game, which was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like I was saying to Mitch, I needed a weekend off from BC football. And I was like, this is the weekend I'm going to go. I just had no expectations. I'm going to go with my kid. I went to the Children's Museum, which, that's an experience in itself. And I listened to the first half in the car on the way home and then watched the second half when I got back. And this game, I think was sloppy. It still was sloppy, but it showed a lot about this team and the potential for the future in the way that they played. And yeah, I think folks need to chill a little bit on the Emmett Morehead talk. I think he had a good game, but he definitely looked like a freshman out there at times, which is fine. he's going to do that. But Joseph Griffin Jr. had a big game and was playing hurt. Apparently,
not really. I mean, he had. I think they didn't even target him really until that touchdown throw. It was
right,
pretty
right.
crazy.
Yeah. Well, he had the big catch at the end.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But I mean, other than that, he was pretty much a non-factor. And it was so funny listening to the announcer saying for that entire drive, essentially, they've got to get to Zay Flowers. They've got to get to Zay Flowers, but they went to the other guys, and I kind of they're saying that, and I totally get it, but I assume that NC State was double or even triple covering Zay on that drive, so that forces you to go to guys like Takis and Jalen Gill, and even Dino Tomlin had a huge play, and those guys, Gill had that major gaff on special teams earlier in the half. Takis had a few drops and didn't have the best game, but aside from that final drive where he had 2 huge catches, drew the final defensive pass interference, and Gill had a bunch of really good catches in this game too, contested catches over the middle, making some big plays where he hasn't been a huge part of the offense. So that was a really cool thing to see. And you saw the offensive line, NC State wasn't really rushing. They were only rushing 3 guys. They were dropping a lot of guys into coverage, but it was good to see the offensive line, hold up to give Morehead at least time to try to find guys downfield to keep that drive alive.
Yeah, and let's talk about Zay. Again, these are all things that we're going to talk about, but this win is so big. He broke, the school's career receiving record and had 2 touchdown catches. And I think it was the second one I saw that, again, you watch him make these plays and he looked like, I think it was the second week in a row that he looked like he was going to get tackled at like the 30-yard line. And he get it. Like NC State had no chance of tackling him. Talk about what he means, because, I remember when he first started and he was a jet sweep guy and, a guy that he could just kind of move around a little bit, but now he's leaving Boston College as their leading wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible transition for a guy who has worked really hard at his craft every year. He's gotten better every year, even though last year, you couldn't really see it as much just because the offense struggled to consistently get him the ball. But this year, this year where they're still having some issues getting him the ball consistently, you're seeing the fruits of those labors come through. Last week against Duke, they, some people put up this play where I think it was on the 20-yard rush by Alex Broom, where Flowers was, blocking aggressively downfield for the whole run. And, for a guy who's 5'10" on a good day and 175 pounds soaking wet, and he's absolutely blocking the hell out of his defender 20, 30 yards downfield, that's something that you're not going to expect from a guy like Zay Flowers. But then again, like you see these other plays where he's doing what he's known to be good at and just does it at such a way where he is completely unstoppable. You see it on the play where he just gets wide open on that deep crossing route for the first touchdown. You see him catching balls on the sidelines, through contested catches. And that's something where he's really improved as well. And of course, the easy plays where you get him the ball on a quick drag route and he's able to, get around one guy, turn the corner, and just get upfield for a huge gain and a touchdown. Those are the kind of plays, if you're thinking about playing Madden or NCAA, where if the CPU does it, and that happens, you just throw your controller because you defend the play pretty well and the game just breaks itself to hurt you. And that's kind of what Zay Flowers is doing to opponents' defenses.
And this is not a slight at Alex Amadon or Richie Gunnell or any of the wide receivers that came before him, but I'm going to say this, and I know some of the older folks are going to get pissed at me, but he's a wide receiver that is in a class of his own.
Even if you want to try to adjust for, the athleticism era difference, you look at guys now and you just know that they're going to be more athletic than guys in the past just because of how much they're training and all that. I just don't think, and again, I haven't been a BC fan for as long as some people, obviously, but I don't think there's a legitimate argument you can make where, because Zay Flowers, aside from maybe being okay, he can't do some of the things Joseph Griffin can do in terms of, being a vertical contested catch receiver where he's, fighting with a guy at the catch point to make catches. Maybe he's not as good at that, but he's really now coming into his own where he can be a complete receiver. And at the next level, I don't think he's going to be able to be all of that just because of the improved quality of NFL defensive backs. He'll probably be relegated as more of a slot player, but watching him, and the color commentator, Roddy Jones, comments on it saying, he reminds me of Deebo Samuel. And I thought that was a bit lofty just in terms of the size difference between the two. But, if you think about some of the guys, maybe like think about some of the guys in the Kansas City Chiefs offense, your Mecole Hardmans, your Kadarius Tonys, these guys where they're just so fast and so quick in the open field that you have to find ways to get them the ball because they can be so explosive for your offense and turn plays that another receiver would gain 2 or maybe 5 yards. They can turn those into 15, 20 plus yard chunk plays. And that's just a extremely valuable skill to have on your offense.
All right. We can keep talking about Zay, but we have to keep this rolling. In a moment, I want to talk about how big of a win this was. I want to talk about and really look at how important it was and where this puts BC moving forward in the future. But let's talk a little bit about inflation. Inflation has all us thinking about different ways to cut back, whether it's driving less, dining out less, or buying less from the grocery store. We can all agree there's nothing fun about less. That's why I started using Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With Upside, I don't have to cut back because I get cash back on every purchase. To get started, download the free Upside app. Use my promo code LOCKED and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, claim an offer from wherever you're buying on Upside. Check in at that business, pay as usual with a credit or debit card, and boom, you're going to get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every week. It's such an easy way to save money. And that's probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash on the first purchase of $10. Again, that's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using promo code LOCKED. All right.
I was told we weren't allowed to talk politics on the show.
I know, right? Well, when the advertisers want to, it's a little different, right? So this was a big win, and a season that I think many of us had just assumed was gone, and it is. I mean, it is for all intents purposes, it is gone. But this seems like, you obviously you want your wins against your UConns and stuff, but this win just seemed really big. And it could all go to the fact that BC hasn't won against a ranked opponent in 8 years, that Jeff Hafley hasn't had a marquee win in 3 years, that you have all these young guys doing all these good things. Mitch, talk about like what this win means to the program, because it seems like it means quite a bit.
I think it's huge because I think the biggest part of what it does is it's kind of seizes that downward momentum you had this program going through towards the end of this season. You kind of save what was, like you said, a lost season. And again, the season is lost in terms of you're not going to make a bowl game unless, I mean, if they went out, maybe, but definitely unlikely. So you're not going to have that postseason bowl game win to, carry momentum into the next season. But what this can do is, arrest that down momentum in terms of, getting guys in the building. And I think that's the thing that Jeff Hafley was talking about so much, is that these guys didn't want to quit. Like if this team had quit, they wouldn't have won this game. And you saw that on, I would say, both sides of the ball. Even with the offense struggling, they kept trying, they kept going at it. They were still trying to make plays. And a team, I guess, like I was saying, like a team that had quit wouldn't be playing this hard towards the end of the season. That again is lost. So, and Hafley spoke about that as well. He's saying, I've seen how hard these guys are working, and things just haven't broke their way. Guys, certain guys haven't been executing. Like, and he says he put some of it on himself. Like, we're not coaching well enough, and we're not putting these guys in good enough positions to play. He talked about how he wishes he had played Dino Tomlin more earlier in the season. That, stuff like that. So he'd be saying, like, I trust these guys, and I trust the players on this team, that they are working hard. They do want to win, and they are doing everything they can in their power to win. And sometimes just things aren't breaking their way. So, but this one, you finally get that you're positively rewarded for the hard work that you are putting in. And I think that to kind of break the fall of this season with this huge win is massive for this program, massive for these players. So it's just really great to see overall.
And if you're out there listening, leave your thoughts in the comment section as well. We'll read some of your comments later on. If there's anything that you're thinking, if you're excited, if you don't really care, just leave your thoughts down there as well. And I think another big point too, and this is more from where I'm at, obviously, as 247's BC publisher. this is big for recruiting, and I'm going to have an article up on Eagle Insider later today about what the recruits thought of this win, because you've seen it over the last couple of weeks where some of the recruits are starting to get a little bit hedgy with their commitment, and we already lost Khalil Ali. He already decommitted and probably is going to end up at Syracuse. But a big win like this really showed the future of the program and showed, okay, guys, yeah, we're not going to make a bowl game, but here's where we're aiming at. And yeah, we've had some tough times, but we're moving in the right direction. So I think recruiting is another big win.
And
Mitch,
hey, I mean, with Syracuse really stumbling towards the finish line and BC kind of getting some mojo back, maybe that game on the final week of the season, maybe it goes in not the way we expected.
Right. I think some folks I was talking to, my wife specifically, was like, man, she's a BC grad too. And she goes, they hadn't beaten a ranked opponent in 8 years. I go, yep, it's been a while. But this feels almost like a bowl win. Like this is like that big of a win. Like I honestly, like I other than the practices, I would ask, like, would you rather have a win against a ranked opponent or a win against, Rice?
East Carolina.
Yeah, right. Like this win means that much. And you're now looking at the last couple games, and Notre Dame's going to be tough. I'm not going to say that that's not going to be easy. But as you mentioned, Syracuse, like 8's bad. But if you win 2 out of the last 3 games, you've got some serious momentum heading into not serious. You have some momentum heading into the offseason. At least
that momentum is better than the momentum you would have had if you lost all 3 games, essentially, like finishing the season where essentially, like, what would if they had lost out, their last win would have been Louisville, right? So, like, yeah, I mean, 4-8 is with two wins in the final 3 weeks is miles ahead of 4-8 with 2 wins in the final 3 weeks is miles ahead of 2-10 with 6 or 7 straight losses.
Yeah, exactly. And at least you can see, like, as someone who has to cover this, I am breathing a sigh of relief here, because I don't think I could last 8 months of listening to people belly gripe about everything that went wrong this season, and that's all we could talk about. You needed some positivity here, and I'm just glad it happened. And I'm first to admit, I predicted BC to lose 31-10 in this game, so I'm not anywhere close to having any bragging rights to think that BC's going to pull this out. And I know I heard the comments of some of the coaches are halfway like, yeah, no one believed in it, and I know that they read our stuff, so I'm sure he saw what I said.
I mean, it's not just us. It's I would
everybody.
imagine every prognosticator, whether it be on the BC side, the NC State side, the betting side, the general media side. I didn't see it on game day, but I can't imagine that anybody on game day picked BC to win this game and probably not even cover it. I don't think BC was going to be any of the panel's super dog this week. So, it's not like we were the only ones in the wrong here.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to have a lot more to talk about this week, but we're a 30-minute podcast, and I have a whole thing on basketball we got to talk about. Mitch, before you go, we got a couple comments I want to get into, and both of them I think are worth talking about. Let's start with Jeffrey Griffin, who says, my favorite part of any BC upset win is reading the NC State Twitter feeds and message boards. The tears were so sweet yesterday, especially with breaking that home winning streak.
Yeah, the home winning streak that they were bringing up halfway through the second quarter, like it was already in the bag, which again, it was surprising that BC won. So I kind of get it, but I thought they were talking about that a little early, given that the game, NC State had opened up that early lead, but they hadn't, opened it any wider when they started talking about it. And I think they even asked Dave Doran about it going into halftime, like, hey, how does it feel that you're about to get this home winning streak? He was like, okay, this is a bit of a jinx. And yeah, I mean, I can't really give it any other word than butthurt of how to describe NC State fans after this win, because they had ample opportunities to win this game. And, for all their belly aching about the...
Oh, I got the flag. Want me to read you Joe Gigolo or whatever his name is? That's a flag you throw to save Clemson or Ohio State or Tennessee. For 2-7 BC, huh? On the road, huh? Unreal.
Yeah, it's almost like that. Even with that argument, it must have been a really egregious penalty for them to even throw it. And on that note about the referees, if you look at the total penalties over the course of the game, BC was penalized 12 times for 97 yards, NC State 8 times for 67 yards. So a difference of 4 penalties and 30 yards in NC State's favor. So you can miss me with that crap. I mean, the number of questionable penalties that were called on BC in this game, triples or quadruples that of NC State, Elijah Jones specifically, and then the absolute hosing of Cole Batson when he hit MJ Morris after Morris tried to juke him, couldn't do anything, and then hit him with a late slide to draw the flag. So I don't want to hear any of that crap from this team. And I wanted to bring this up also, that this reminds me of the Skip Bayless tweet where he says, I was wrong about being wrong about the Clippers. And that's how I feel about the Cincinnati team. I was wrong about being wrong about them being complete frauds.
And also, like, if NC State writers want to be mad at your offensive coordinator for whatever that offensive game plan was. Don't get mad at the refs. That's just lazy. Your offensive coordinator put together a terrible plan to attack BC and had every opportunity to do.
I wouldn't even. I mean, I would even say I think the plan initially, the opening script, if you will, was great, and they tore BC apart, and then a complete inability to adjust after. And MJ Morris kind of revealed himself. He didn't. This is something that I hadn't checked, and this might have been because he got dinged up later in the game, but he didn't attempt a single pass outside to the left the entire game. So pretty much everything was from the left from the left side numbers over. So he was never throwing that way. It was always to his right, and very rarely threw it deep. He had, I think, the first pass there, Thomas, which was a very contested throw by Jason Maitre, and then had, I think, one other one, and he threw an interception deep. So, that was the thing. It was all intermediate stuff, all mostly to the intermediate right. So, yeah, I mean, NC State fans, L plus ratio plus whatever,
Yep. And then we have another comment from Dan Kent. Anyway, Hafley would start Djokovic versus Notre Dame. I hope they will play for the future and continue the momentum with Morehead. I'm wondering if the plan was for Jerk to return against his ex-team. Well, I'll jump in on this one because I heard Hafley's comments today at the press media availability. And it sounds like an operation table based off of all the things that are wrong with Djokovic right now. He's got a concussion. He's got a knee injury. He's got rib injury. He's got like 4 or 5 things.
And I think that is, I think at least some of that is true, but I also think that Morehead's performance in these last 2 games, especially this one, even though he did throw 2 interceptions, but he did lead the comeback drive, obviously. I think that gives Hafley a nice cover to not have to, switch out a quarterback who's been playing pretty well the last few games. Although, and I think that if Djokovic was healthier, I think that would be a matter of discussion, because I like giving him that opportunity to start against his former team. But with how Morehead has played, and I have to wonder, maybe if Morehead doesn't lead that touchdown drive and BC loses the game by touchdown, I wonder if there is a legitimate debate about starting Djokovic. But because of how the game ended, I just really think there isn't a way you can go back to Djokovic. Not meant to be a slight against him. Just, you got to ride the hot hand at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Morehead's going to be the guy, and you'll just basically you're just going to have to listen. We got one last comment.
I just saw that one, and I think no. All right,
I'll get to it. There we go. And then we have Starbolt 09. Does our best win in 8 years, NC State, erase our worst loss in 100 years, UConn?
No, because like we said, this game was a slog. It wasn't like BC ended up winning, but I think it's fair to say that they got some, like we were saying, like the whole year, like turnover luck just never went BC's way this game, and BC didn't get any points off of it, but I think it was like 3 consecutive drives where they had 2 fumbles, the interception, where finally just things started to break BC's way in terms of that. And they did have, in terms of special teams, which is something we talked about going into this game, you did have that big muffed punt. Well, not even muffed punt, just a fumble on the punt return by Jalen Gill, which was, like the commentator called it right. He made the right play trying to get upfield, split the gunners. They just hit him perfectly to get the ball out. But other than that, there wasn't really that big special teams gaffe, I would say. I guess that's the one, but there wasn't a consistent problem that I would say if it impacted BC's ability to win the game.
And I'm going to go ahead, and I hate saying this because I've made a career out of beating on UConn, but I don't think this UConn's the worst loss in a while, because I even in the last 10 years, they're a bowl team right now. They just beat me. And I know it stinks because it's UConn. You don't want to lose to UConn. And believe me, I'm not discrediting that. I'm saying there's I go back to 2012 against Army, that team that lost to Stony Brook the week before. and then goes out and puts it was like 60 points against BC that year. There's other bad losses out there, and I think there's a lot of in between in this being the best win in a while and the worst loss for UConn, but that's my soapbox on that one. And we've got a couple, man, the comments are coming in crazy. All right, Bruce.
What happens when you win.
Bruce says, yeah, I know, right? The L ratio was hilarious, Mitch.
Yeah, that dude just needs to go outside, touch grass. They were lucky to, NC State was lucky to even, NC State is also kind of like, again, like I was wrong about being wrong about them. I think they were able to squeak by some wins, against a Wake Forest team that's kind of collapsing. They had a close win against Virginia Tech, who, is rivaling BC for the worst team in the ACC. And yeah, watching the game, it was just clear, like, this NC State team is not good. If they were good, they would have been able to score more points and they would have been able to win this game, because BC has not been playing well up into this game, but BC's defense made a lot of plays that gave the offense more opportunities to at least do something. And again, just put it succinctly, NC State had plenty of opportunities to go out and win this game. And despite having 30 to 40 fifth and sixth year players on senior day, they couldn't do it. And that's the bottom line.
All right, I got to do a quick ad read. I was going to talk about basketball, and I will for like a minute, but I'm going to bring back Mitch to talk more about this game, because I got to keep this under like 35 minutes, and we're just going to keep talking football because I think everyone wants to talk football. So now this week's thrilling moment in college football is brought to you by Nissan. The thrilling designs behind the new lineup from Nissans are intended to empower in vehicles as capable as the drivers themselves. When I think of unbelievabilities on the field for this week's thrilling moment, there's no other choice. It's going to be the touchdown pass to Joe Griffin with 14 seconds left. BC drove down the field. They were down by a touchdown or 5 points, and come back 6 points and come back and win 21. A great one-handed catch in the end zone by the big freshman from Springfield Central. Now, the segment has been inspired by the thrilling new designs featured across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. Pursue what thrills you all in the new Frontier, Armada, or Pathfinder today. Available now at nissanusa.com. Now, this is AJ Black. We're back again. I have every intention of talking about BC and Detroit Mercy during this game, but everyone wants to talk football. It was a huge win. I'm going to go really quick. BC had a great win on Friday afternoon, in a matinee game against Detroit Mercy. If you didn't get a chance to get the game out, you really need to go back and watch that. Mason Madsen hits a big shot at the end of the game for the Cardiac Eagles. It was a win that I don't think anyone thought was going to happen near the end. It just looked like they were not hanging on. But for the second straight time, BC looks like a team that is finding ways to win, and that's all you can ask for. But the big issue with BC basketball at this point is the injuries. Prince Aligbe goes down with an injury. Hand goes down with an injury. TJ Bickerstaff goes down with an injury. It sounds like all three are not major injuries, but that's now 5 guys in their top 10 that are out with injuries. So BC is going to play tonight against Maine, against their former assistant coach, Chris Markwood, who is their head coach of Maine now. Should be an interesting one in Conti Forum. But I'm going back to football because I don't get opportunities like this often to talk about really good things about BC football. So before we get into that, folks, if you're out there and you want great BC videos sent directly to your feed and you want to help support our podcast, hit that subscribe button right now to get notified whenever we go live and get all your BC videos sent directly to you. Just hit that subscribe button right now. It really helps. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers closer every day. And I'd love you, if you're listening right now, to become another one of our subs. Mitch, let's go through some more of our comments.
I want to talk to that. I want to do that last comment about basketball, actually.
All right.
Because I got something to say about that. So,
AJ, let me read the question because I don't think anyone can listen to the pod. AJ, do you think BC's basketball team has a chance to win 20 games this year?
Hell no. This team is barely beating Cornell and Detroit Mercy. I think it's good that they are winning these close games, but that is not going to last against an ACC schedule. I think this team is going to be lucky to get to 15 wins. This is exactly what happened last year, where you're getting hyped over this team that is still developing, and I feel like people are going to, lose their minds again, and then they're actually going to start losing to real opponents, and then everything's going to come crashing down again. So let's pump the brakes. Let's actually beat some bad teams comfortably instead of going through a 6 or 8 minute scoring drought until finally getting, a few shots to fall at the end of a game. Yeah, I think we got to pump the brakes real hard on BC basketball being a good team this year. But let's go back to football.
I'm going to disagree with Mitch on this one because I think BC is really banged up right now. They're missing a ton of their guys, and the ACC is real bad right now. I don't know if anyone's been listening to some of the other results. Louisville just lost to Wright State and Bellarmine, heard of before, and have dropped to 0-2. Florida State just dropped to UCF and Stetson. They're 0-2. So ACC teams are dropping like flies in these bye games. So if BC can get healthy, and I think that's going to be the big thing with this basketball team, if they can get healthy, they're going to be in better shape. But that's going to be a big question mark, right? Because if they continue to lose guys and you have to put big minutes on some of these other kids, they're in big trouble. But if they get DeMar Langford and Quentin Post back, we'll have to talk. But I think it's too early to see.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of all I'm saying too. Is like,
yeah,
I don't follow college basketball in general as closely, but let's get into the real schedule before we start, claiming this team's going to win the ACC or whatever. So yeah. So let's go back to football.
All right, so let's go to Jeffrey Griffin has another comment. I was having PTSD imagining Daz calling a run on one of those last plays at the goal line and running out of time.
Yeah, I think the comment before it, or there's a comment around it as well. Oh, the one before by Daniel Kelleher that says the question is have to be able to run the ball even a little bit though. Totally agree. I mean, BC could not get the run game going at all. I mean, the NC State's defense was completely resetting line of scrimmage anytime they wanted to run the ball, and it was especially frustrating in the second half when BC was still like starting drives with they'd start 1st and 10 and run play and lose a yard. And it was pretty much like every time and still just running those situations. And I think BC really needs to transition to, you got to pass to be able to run, because a lot of the times they're still coming out in 12 personnel, indicating that they're going to run on early downs, and then the defense knows it's coming. And luckily, Notre Dame's defense is good. I still would say it's not NC State good, and Syracuse's defense is definitely not anywhere near the other two. So you should be able to get some more success running the ball in the last 2 games, but I think you got to, adjust the way you're approaching running the ball, because it definitely is important, but the current philosophical bent of how they want to run the ball is just not working. And again, like the offensive line struggled a lot early on, especially when NC State would bring the blitz and use a lot of stunts and stuff, which is something we've come to expect. So, I think, again, it's good that, the offense line is still staying healthy. So they're going to get even more chemistry together, which is great to see. So, maybe they can, get back to where they were against Duke and, maybe at points early in the season where they can actually, move the ball on the ground a little bit. And that should help the offense. But again, I think they need to pass to run, at least in these last 2 games.
Yeah, it feels like those times that they're just running the ball for the sake of running the ball, they're just wasting down.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I mean, in general, that's running the ball in early downs is you're essentially just wasting time, wasting points, and wasting plays. So,
all right. And so we have another comment from Peter Caruso, who says, I don't know if BC will be bowl eligible or a top 25 team next year, but with Morehead and Griffin, I think we'll be totally fine. Yeah, I mean, I think the big question is going to be that offensive line. And, you're gonna have to wait to see who comes back, if Mahogany is here and Kevin Klein and Finn Dursing's going to be gone. I think. Who am I missing?
I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, everybody else is still pretty young, so you're still gonna have, and then you get like a guy like Jude Bowery. Does he play more? Does he kind of replace Jack Conley, or does he slide in a different position? I mean, next year, I agree. I don't think top 25 is in the cards, but bowl eligible definitely. I mean, just look at the out of conference. And we said that going into this year, so that's a critique. But your out of conference is NIU at home, Holy Cross at home, at Army, and then home against UConn at the end of October. And luckily, those first 2 games, like you're playing a MAC opponent at home, and then you're playing an FCS team at home. So unlike this year, where your week 1 was, playing another Power 5 team that, again, not very good, but Power 5 is much different than FCS or even MAC. And then on the road, short week against an ACC opponent. So this next year, you've got 2 very winnable games to start the season, both at home. And then, your ACC schedule, you've got Florida State, Virginia Tech, Miami, and Virginia at home. And so Virginia Tech is going to be still doing a rebuild. I think that's a likely win. Miami's a dumpster fire right now. You got to think they'll improve next year, though. Virginia also, also a dumpster fire. I mean, if you saw how
Yep.
they started that game against Pitt, I mean, it was like one of those glitch in the system games. You're like, wait, did this actually happen? But so if you win your non-con schedule and you can beat the 2 Virginia schools, that's 6 wins. And then then you've got, like I said, Florida State at home, and then you've got road games at Louisville, and you'll have to be facing Louisville finally without Malik Cunningham. You'll be going to Syracuse, who they might be missing Sean Tucker. You've got at Georgia Tech, who's going to have a new coach, and they'll be in a rebuilding year, and then at Pitt, and that's probably going to be a decent game. So I think bowl eligible is definitely in the cards next year, and I think Emmett Morehead and Joe Griffin are going to be a huge part of that. But getting to top 25, I think that's a little out of reach.
Yeah. And I think I'm having technical difficulties right
I
now.
can do some. So we got Chris asks, if BC pulls off 5-7 season, do they deserve a bowl game after what they've been through the past 2 seasons? I think that I initially disagree. I initially said no, they don't deserve it, but that is a good point about the last 2 years. But I still don't think they'll get one, even though they do have the APR thing to help out. But I think Hafley might be wise enough to say, like, we're not going to try that. So,
and I think I've read that they have. It looks like they're going to have plenty of teams to fill it, and there's a team in stores that is that even if they win 6 wins, aren't technically a lock to make a bowl game, which I thought was interesting. All right, we got a lot. I got to wrap this up, guys. So we're going to probably close down the comment section in a second because you guys have a lot of good things to talk about. This is what I love. This is what I've been missing. I was hoping for the season, and a lot of good talk instead of when are you going to fire Hafley? When are you going to fire Hafley? It's been like the last 6 weeks. So what's Tomlin's role in this team the last 2 games next year? I think he's going to be one of the probably the starting wide receivers. I think BC next, and you can disagree with me. I think BC going into the next season is going to go with Griffin, Tomlin, and probably Lewis Bond and Dante Reynolds as their probably top 4 wideouts.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think in terms of, I think Tomlin's going to be probably starting Z. He'll essentially take over Zay Flowers' role. You'll see Joseph Griffin be the X, and then figure something out with the rest of the guys who's the slot receiver. You're probably going to see BC, I would imagine, do a little more 11, maybe even 10 personnel next year, because I think they're going to kind of be going through an overhaul at the tight end position in terms of, Jeremiah Franklin and Hans Lillis being the 2 starters. So you might see a bit of a changing of the guard there. But I mean, the guy just makes plays. That's really what he does at this point. And he's making, all these like contested catches, which is great to see. I think it'll be interesting to see next year when he is, a true starter and like a primary target of this offense. We'll see how he responds to that promotion. But I mean, I think you're going to see his role expand. I think it's interesting that you're seeing, you saw Joseph Griffin not really play as much for the rest of this game. And like you said, he might be hurt, a little banged up, but you saw Jalen Gill get a lot more reps as an outside receiver as opposed to a slot receiver, which I thought was interesting. Yep. And you really saw him, Zay, and then Tomlin kind of all rotate in and out of the slot, which was interesting to see how they divided that rotation.
And I'm going to jump in on this one. Is there any speedy and explosive receivers who are uncommitted or transferring? Please come to the Heights from Peter Caruso. There is Nate Johnson. And I'm going to tell you right now, if someone was asking me about like a speedy wide receiver, if Jaden Williams is not going to be the starter next year, Nate Johnson is a wide receiver from Florida who's committed to BC. I just actually talked to him tonight. He's still committed. He is fast. And I keep hearing from scouts, this is a good kid, kind of like Griffin, that's probably going to crack the 2 deep pretty quick. So keep your eye open on him.
He's essentially then just going to be the heir apparent to Zay from what, if you think about how Zay came out to the team in 2019, like he was, you read the roster, you're like, oh yeah, they're going to be starting this true freshman who's 5'10" and 150 pounds. You're saying, what? I'm not sure that's going to work. And that first game, his first year, he absolutely blew up. So that works. Well, I like this question about the offensive line.
And then our last, we'll get this to our last question, and then I'll let Teddy Edson end it. Dan Kent says, what should BC do about the offensive line during the offseason? I think that's the big question for next year. Should we hit the transfer portal, and is Mahogany transferring out? Mitch, I'll let you give your thoughts on this one.
All right. So the last part of the question is kind of the most concrete. There's been some rumors that there's been some rumors about it. We can't really confirm anything. I think there's a chance he comes back. And if he does and he's healthy, he's obviously a starter. In terms of the rest of the line, Ozzie Trapilo at left tackle, Drew Kendall at center are still starters. So you've got left guard and then right tackle. And you assume that Kevin Klein is going to come back, probably lock up that right tackle job. He wasn't super impressive in 1.5 games, but
it's 1.5 games.
Yeah, exactly. So, he's going to have some time to get better in the offseason and, sensibly compete with guys. If Conley comes back, compete with him again and compete with Jude Bowery and some of the other guys. I'm not sure how Kahapea and is it Matt? No, who's the other one?
Reagan.
Reagan. I was going to say Reagan. Yeah. Compete with Reagan for that spot, maybe. And then left guard, you got a lot of guys you can plug in now. You got a lot of guys with experience. If ideally, if Klein does win the right tackle job again, you can maybe plug Conley at guard. And if he can stay there, maybe he finally takes a step forward into being a competent starting off AC offensive lineman. If not, you still got a decent amount of guys there. I think going out and getting at least one transfer is the best move just for depth purposes. A guy who has ideally, and like I said in the article earlier this season, like I think BC tried to go out and get Tyler Steen, who was transferring out of Vanderbilt, and then Alabama came calling. And say what you will, but if you're getting recruited by Alabama and BC, and Alabama wants you to come be their starting left tackle for Bryce Young, you're going to take that every day and twice on Sundays. So I get that. I think you're going to see Hafley be more aggressive in the portal at that position, even though I think he does like his guys. But I think he recognizes, hey, like we got to get at least one guy to come in here who has actual playing competent experience at the Power 5 level.
Yeah, Jack Funk was the guy. Matt Regan is their tight end.
Yes, thank you. I would say I knew because there was Sean Reagan who was here a few years ago. Yeah, so yeah, Funk is the other guy, and then I think they got two or three guys coming in the next.
Yeah, they got Ryan Mickow and
Rounce.
Yeah, Michael Krause.
Yeah, something like that. So like you got bodies. It's just a matter of guys getting acclimated to college football quickly. And you still have guys like Elijah Krasnovich and Kevin Pine, who I'm not really sure what happened with him, but you have plenty of bodies. It's just a matter of like, can they actually be competent players? So
all right.
I think by default, you're going to see the offensive line be better next year because I can't imagine them being worse.
All right. Yeah, we got to wrap this up. I'm going to get in trouble with my bosses for having an episode that goes too long, but I'll stick with this because I think this is a great episode. I'm glad you all stopped by. Again, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Love having all you commenters out there hitting that subscribe button and getting your comments out to us. We get some big things planned. Hopefully, if we get more commenters on board, subscribing to our channel. So please do that right now. I'll be back again tomorrow. We're going to talk about the main game. I still have a lot to talk about in this game on Saturday for BC football. Mitch, where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE on Twitter. We'll be publishing 3 stars, should be out tomorrow. Again, unfortunately, ESPN has found my secret and it's a lot harder to take clips from games. So I'm going to have to play around to see about making those clips for the rewatch article this week, which will definitely be a fun one to do given that BC actually won the game. A lot of interesting schematic stuff that came from this game on both sides of the ball. So that's really cool to see. And I do want to thank everybody for listening. Oh, I was just about to thank everybody for listening and to me last week and follow me on Twitter because I was at 700 Twitter followers today and I'm back down to 699. So which one of you cowards unfollowed, fix yourself.
All right, yeah. Make sure you follow Mitch at Mitchell T. Wolfe. Get on that.
I wasn't tweeting because I wasn't tweeting as much from my personal because I was tweeting from the BC account. But when I'm tweeting my personal during the game, I get a little more feisty and in the mix with people. So for the last 2 games, you definitely want to be following me there.
All right, and you can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you all again tomorrow. Take care, everyone, and thanks for listening.